name is Savannah, and today I will be guiding you through a class to prepare your body for Chaturanga. Chaturanga is used in many yoga classes to get you from plank through Chaturanga to up dog or cobra, opening up the heart, and then back to downward facing dog. This is a very common flow we do many times throughout a class. Many people, though, do not have the strength required to do Chaturanga properly. So in this class, we will be focusing on breaking it down step by step, integrating the body as one whole unit, engaging the legs, engaging the core, as well as the upper body, in order to find that strength and in order to feel that the body is benefiting from this pose. I encourage you to do this practice 2 to 3 times a week for 3 weeks, and I'm sure that you will see some positive changes in your body, specifically your upper body, gaining that strength. You will also see the positive changes in your yoga practice. I would love to hear any thoughts or feedback that you have in the comments of this video. And if you enjoy this practice, you can subscribe to my channel if you have not already. I would love to have you here. Let's begin in a tabletop position. Shoulders over wrists, hips over top of the knees. Fingers are spread nice and far apart. Press down into all 10 fingertips. Press down into the knees and into the tops of the feet. The toes are untucked. Allow the weight here on your wrist to be light. Fingers are spread super far apart. Pressing down into the fingertips, the pads of the fingers. Engage into the shoulders and into the chest a little bit more. And just hold here, settling into this pose for about 5 breaths. Breathing in and breathing out. Look about 2 to 3 feet out in front of you, towards the front of your space. Allow your spine to lengthen out, find more space in between each of the vertebrae of your spine. And then from here, think about dialing the hands outward, away from one another. Almost like you're going to bring the base of the palms towards one another and the fingers away from one another. So it would look like this, but you're not actually moving the hands. You're just thinking about that action. Notice how that engages your shoulders and the whole arm, the upper arm, the lower arm. Notice also how that brings the elbows in towards the center of your body, rather than out to the side. Notice how this allows you to feel super strong and stable and steady in this pose. Hold it here, dialing the hands out and breathe. Allow the core to hug in a little bit. Keep dialing the hands out. And keep your breath flowing in and out through the nose. Release, sit back onto your heels and shake out your hands, shake out your wrists if you like, and just breathe before we do that a couple more times. Okay, let's try that again. Fingers spread nice and far apart, shoulders stack over the wrists, hips stack over top of the knees. Now dial the hands out. Continue to dial the hands out. And Continue to breathe as you hold this pose. Do not hold your breath. So imagine that you are bringing the palms, the base of the palms towards center and the fingers away from one another towards the sides of your mat. Keep dialing the hands out. Feel all the stability in the pose, very strong and steady. Release, sit back onto your heels and take a couple of breaths. You can shake it out if you would like to. Maybe you give your shoulders a couple rolls. And once again, shoulders over wrists, hips over knees in your tabletop, fingers spread nice and far apart. Dial the hands outward. So this action, only your hands are staying just as they are. Release, and dial them out again. We're going to turn this on and off. Release, relax, stay in tabletop a couple more times. Dial out, back to center, release, dial out, release, one more time. Dial the hands out, release, sit back onto your hands. You can shake your wrists, your hands out. Maybe you give your shoulders a couple rolls. And come back to tabletop now. Come to plank pose. So step the right foot back and then the left foot. And just take the knees down. So you're in a modified plank. And from here, dial the hands out, just like we did in tabletop. Hold here in your modified plank, dialing the hands out, but make sure you are not holding your breath. Just a little bit longer. Good, release, come back to tabletop, and then sit back onto your heels. Take a couple of big breaths here. Let's do that one more time. So come to modified plank. Dial the hands out. Notice how this engages your whole arm, your shoulders, maybe into your chest and upper back. This allows you to find more stability and steadiness in the pose. Come to a seated position and take a couple of breaths. Breathe in and breathe out. Notice how the body is feeling and notice how the mind is feeling. Come to a tabletop position, shoulders over wrists, hips over knees. From here, moving into serratus push-ups. So this is what it will look like. I'll just show you first. So I'm bringing my shoulder blades towards one another as I inhale. As I exhale, I'll bring the shoulder blades away from one another. As I inhale, I'll bring the shoulder blades towards one another. As I exhale, I'll bring the shoulder blades away from one another. Let's try this now all together. Inhale, shoulder blades towards one another. Exhale, shoulder blades towards one another. Inhale, shoulder blades towards one another. Exhale, shoulder blades away from one another. Keep both arms straight this entire time, and fingers are spread nice and far apart. Inhale, shoulder blades towards one another. Exhale, shoulders away from one another. Inhale, shoulders towards one another. Exhale, shoulders away from one another. Shoulders towards one another, shoulders away from one another. Arms straight this whole time. Continue like this. We'll do a few more. As you bring the shoulders towards one another, the chest dips down just slightly towards the ground. And as you bring the shoulders away from one another, the chest lifts up just slightly. Last one here, shoulders away from one another, lift the chest up. Come to a neutral tabletop and stay here for a couple of breaths. Dial the hands outward. Fingers are spread nice and far apart. Release, sit back onto the heels. Find any movement that you like. Now we'll try that from a plank position, modified plank. So stepping the right foot back, left foot back, lower the knees down. Fingers spread nice and far apart. Shoulder blades come towards one another. Chest lowers just slightly. Arms stay straight this whole time. And then shoulders away from one another. Chest lifts up slightly. Shoulders towards one another. Shoulders away from one another. Shoulders towards one another. Inhale. Exhale. Shoulders away from one another. Inhale. Shoulders towards one another. Exhale, shoulders away from one another. Inhale, shoulders towards one another. Exhale, shoulders away from one another. Shoulders towards one another. And then shoulders away from one another. Continue like this. Do a few more. Inhale as the shoulders come towards one another. Exhale as the shoulders come away from one another. And then from here, sit back, come to a seated position. Take a couple of breaths once again. Notice how your upper body is feeling. And from here, come to a modified plank position. Dial the hands away from one another and lower down. Elbows hug in towards the sides of your body. Lower halfway down. Come back to modified plank. Let's do that 4 more times. If you need to rest at any point, you can press pause and do that. Dial the hands away from one another so the elbows can hug into the sides of your body. Lower down. Press back up, straighten through the arms. Let's continue. Dial the hands out, bend the elbows, lower down, straighten the elbows, come up. 2 more. Elbows hug in as we lower. Elbows continue to hug in as you straighten the arms. 1 more time. Dial the hands out, elbows hug in, lower down, lift back up. Take a seat and take a couple of breaths here. Just 1 more breath. Let's repeat that same thing once again. So come to a modified plank. Fingers spread nice and far apart. Dial the hands out. Elbows hug in, lower down, about halfway. Press back up, straighten arms. 4 more times. Dial the hands out, elbows in, lower down, about halfway. Press back up, straighten arms. Dial the hands out, lower down, halfway. Inhale, press up. Dial the hands out. Lower down, halfway, elbows hug in, press back up. Let's do 1 more. Dial out, lower down, straighten the arms, lift back up. Take a seat for a couple of rounds of breath in and out through the nose. You might be feeling tired. Maybe the backs of your arms, your triceps are feeling tired, maybe your chest, maybe your shoulders. You are likely using muscles that you do not usually use so much in your yoga practice. We are working hard to take time to rest in between. Okay, let's continue. We'll do one more round of that before we try something else. So come into modified plank, dial the hands outward, lower down halfway. Press back up to modified plank, straight arms, continue. Dial the hands out. Make sure you are doing that the whole time. Elbows come in, lower down, straighten the arms. Dial the hands out, elbows in, bend the arms, straighten the arms as you lift back up. Dial the hands out, lower down, lift back up. Dial the hands, lower down, bend the arms, lift back up, straightening the arms. Let's do one more. Dial the hands out, lower down, lift back up. Good. Take a seat. Remember to take rest whenever you need to. You can stop, you can pause. This is your practice. So do what is right for you. Okay, make your way now into downward facing dog. So you can come through tabletop, tuck the toes under, lift the hips up and back into your downward facing dog. Working on some pike push-ups now. Bend the elbows out towards the side this time, but you can still focus on dialing the hands outward. And you'll work towards bringing the top of your head down towards the mat. Just go as far as you can, and then lift yourself back up, straighten the elbows. Let's try to do 3 more. Bend the elbows, crown of the head down towards the mat. 1 more. Bend the elbows, crown of the head down. Straighten the elbows back to downward facing dog. Bring your knees down. Take a seat. 1 big breath here, in and out through the nose. Come to downward facing dog and we'll hold downward facing dog. Holding it for about 10 breaths. Make sure you are able to breathe in and out through your nose. Maintain a steady, smooth rhythm for your breath. Lift your hips up towards the sky a little bit more. Fingers are spread nice and far apart. It's okay if your knees are bent, and it's okay if your heels are lifted up off of the ground. Five more breaths before we take it down to our knees. Let's take 2 more breaths in and out through the nose. Allow your breath to help you stay in the pose. Good. Take it down to your knees. Find a seat. And take 1 big breath here in your seat. once again, notice how your body is feeling. Notice how your mind is feeling. Come to a tabletop position. Shoulders over wrists, hips over knees, dial the hands out. Come to plank, step the right foot back, and then the left foot back. Lower the knees down, lower halfway down to the ground, and hold it. So you don't have to lower halfway down, you can stay higher up towards your modified plank if that works better for you. And we're just gonna hold this for a little bit longer. Lower all the way down to your belly now. Rest one hand over top of the other and bring your forehead to rest down onto your hands. Breathe in and out. Allow each breath to be full and complete. Bring your hands underneath your shoulders now. Press up to a tabletop position. Come back to modified plank. Knees are down, fingers spread far apart. And we'll do that same thing. So lower down about halfway, or you can stay higher up if you need to, if that works better for you. Lowering down, elbows hug in. Hold here for about 3 breaths. Breathe in and out. Allow each breath to be full. Lower all the way down. One hand stacks over top of the other. Rest your forehead down onto your hands. Once again, hands underneath the shoulders, press up to modified plank, knees are down, fingers spread far apart, dial the hands out, lower down, however much you need to. So you can lower down about halfway, or you can stay higher up, elbows hug in towards the body, and we hold here. Release. Coming all the way down, one hand over top of the other, rest your forehead down to your hands. Hands underneath the shoulders, press up to modified plank, dial the hands outward, lower down. Hold here for a couple of breaths, elbows hug in. Make sure you are feeling a challenge here. So lower down even more if you need to in order to feel challenged. Lower all the way down to the mat, one hand over top of the other, rest your head down. From here, hands under the shoulders, lift up to modified plank. Now come to a full plank. So the knees are lifted this time. Hold here for about 5 breaths. And even here, you can think about dialing the hands out. So the fingertips would go towards the sides of your mat, but you're not actually moving your hands. You're just thinking about doing that action. Release the knees down. Take a couple of breaths and rest here in a seated position. You could also stay in a tabletop if you prefer. Come back to plank, stepping the feet back. Once you're in your plank, lower down to your belly. Dial the hands out, elbows hug in towards the sides of your body, coming onto the right tips of your toes, shifting forward, lower all the way down. From here, coming into a tabletop position, pressing up through modified plank, Step back to full plank. Dial the hands out, shift forward onto the tippy toes. Elbows hug in, lower all the way down. Good. Coming up through a modified plank. Lift the knees up, tuck the toes under, and lift up into a full plank, high plank. Shift forward onto your toes, dial the hands out, lower all the way down slowly with control to your belly. Come up through modified plank. We'll do that 2 more times. High plank, shift forward to your toes, dial the hands out. Lower down slowly with control, elbows hug in towards the body. Come up through modified plank, lift up to high plank, dial the hands out, shift forward, lower down slowly with control, all the way down to your belly. Lift up to a modified plank, come to tabletop. From your tabletop, dial your hands out and hold here for a couple of breaths. Make sure as you hold this pose, your breath is still flowing. Sit back onto your heels and take a breath here. Let's try putting this all together now, coming into a flow. So come to plank, high plank, knees are lifted, dial the hands out, find a nice strong plank, feel steady and stable. Shift forward onto your toes, dial the hands out, hug the elbows in, lower down about halfway. Coming into upward facing dog, come onto the tops of your feet, pull your heart forward, pull the crown of the head up towards the ceiling, and then roll over towards the soles of the feet. Come back into your downward facing dog. Hold downward facing dog for about 3 breaths. One more breath here. If you would like to push pause and take a rest, you can do that. Otherwise, let's try this one more time. Come forward to plank, shift forward towards the tippy toes, dial the hands out, elbows hug in, lower down about halfway, coming onto the tops of your feet, pull your heart through, opening up the heart, upward facing dog, and shift back, hips lift high, downward facing dog. Breathe in and out, allow each inhale to be full, each exhale to be complete. Allow your breath to help you stay in this practice. Let's shift forward to plank. Dial the hands out. Come forward even more towards the tippy toes. Bend the elbows, elbows stay in towards the sides of your body. Come onto the tops of your feet, pull your heart through, opening up the heart. Crown of the head reaches up towards the ceiling. Shift it back, downward facing dog. A few big breaths here in your downward facing dog. From here, take the knees down, stand up onto your knees, reach your arms up. Inhale, find as much space as you can from your knees all the way up to your fingers. From here, bring your hands through heart center, take a seat onto your feet. Let's bring the feet out in front of us, bending the knees. Fingers can face towards the front of the mat, sides of the mat, or back. It's up to you. Press down into the hands, make sure the fingers are spread nice and far apart. Press down into the feet. Lift the heart up, lift the chest up, crown of the head up. Arms are straight, and then from here, lift the hips up into your reverse tabletop. Just a couple more breaths here, using this pose to open up through the chest after working on strengthening it with all of those push-up variations. From here, bring the hips back down and just lift your heart up, lift the crown of the head up towards the ceiling. Come to a tabletop position. Let's just move through some cats and cows. Inhale, lift the tailbone, lift the heart up, look up. Exhale to round into your cat. Inhale for cow, lifting the tailbone, lifting the heart up. Exhale to round into cat. Arms are straight this whole time. Inhale to cow, and exhale to cat. One more time, inhale to cow, and exhale to cat. From here, come to a seated position and make your way down onto your back. Take a moment just to hug the knees into your chest. Wrap the arms around your legs, rock from side to side. And then if there's any other poses or movements you would like to do before coming into Shavasana, please do that now. Otherwise, if you're coming into Shavasana, take your legs wide out towards the top corners of your mat. Arms open up, palms can face the ceiling. Eyes can close down if that feels comfortable for you. You may be sore from this practice tomorrow. That is okay. That is normal. Nothing to worry about. Make sure you repeat this practice and continue with it if you want to build the strength required to perform your Chaturanga. But for now, know that there's nothing that you need to do, nowhere to be. So just be here right now in this moment as you lie down on your mat, taking up lots of space with the body and knowing that it is okay to take up this space. Know that it is okay to take rest now. Allow your breath to flow however it wants to. And thank yourself for stepping onto your mat, for taking some time out of your day, for working on something that may be a little bit different than what you would normally do in your practice. Thank yourself for making this effort to get stronger. Physical strength. This physical strength that we worked on today in our practice definitely translates into mental strength off of the mat. Can you allow the arms, the shoulders, the chest, even the upper back, also the wrists and the hands to completely rest and relax? Soften the shoulders down away from the ears. Soften and release your jaw and the muscles of your face, your forehead. Think about releasing any tension you are holding on to in the body, but specifically in the upper body. The upper body worked very hard for us in this practice, and now it is time to allow it to rest. Make sure that you take a break from this practice. Do not do this class again tomorrow. You can do it the next day, but the body needs some time to recover before getting right back into it. But doing this practice 2 to 3 times a week would be really, really good for building that strength, finding some confidence with Chaturanga. I really hope that you enjoyed this practice and that it served you well. Like I said at the beginning of class, I would love to hear any thoughts or feedback in the comments of this video. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for sharing your beautiful practice with me. The light in me sees and recognizes the light in you.